Now, there's snaking queues at this stage at the Lebombo Border post in Komatipoort between South Africa and Mozambique. Travelers are being warned of delays as it becomes even worse during this Easter weekend. The Border Management Authority is also expected to visit that border crossing today. Manqoba Mchunu is there and is joining us now to bring us the latest. Good afternoon, Manqoba. Well, during holiday seasons or long weekends, let alone Easter weekend, Lebombo Border post gets very busy. What's the latest?
Well, certainly, Pradan. In fact, one would expect that we'll see quite a hive of activity here at the Lebombo Border post. Of course, it is one of Africa's busiest borders, as you know, Pradan, linking South Africa to Mozambique. And of course, you would expect that many of the holiday makers will be using this particular border to transit between the two countries. But of course, Pradan, as things stand, not quite hectic in terms of traffic volumes that we've seen here at the border. I guess it speaks to the fact that many people are either still planning their trips or some of them will be leaving their destinations this afternoon. But border officials also keeping quite a close eye on the border here and the traffic inflow and outflow here at the border to ensure a smooth process and the processing, of course, of those that will be using this particular border. In fact, if I just step out, you can see, Pradan, here, not quite many vehicles here at this particular stage, but the officials from the Border Management Authority are also on the ground. The border guards are here on the ground just to ensure that all, the laws, as far as the border management laws are kept to, their standards, and that really they don't allow any acts of criminality here at this particular border. But earlier on, we also saw some provincial authorities that are here. The police commissioner here, Provincial Commissioner Daphne Masimula, as well as the MEC for Community Safety, Vusi Shong, we were also here on a walkabout with authorities from the Border Management Authority just to see how things are going. So far, everything seems smooth. We're not even seeing, those, long queues of vehicles here and trucks waiting. They're being processed fast and they are moving to the other side of Mozambique. But I want to bring in the Commissioner of the Border Management Authority, Dr. Mike Masiapato. Thank you very much for your time, Dr. Mike. Let's start here. Your observations so far, how are things going here at the border?
Thank you very much. I will say that everything is going according to the plan. We had put very extensive plan on the ground, particularly around the issues of corridor management. One of the problems that we've been having for a number of times, it has been that we've been focusing our efforts in terms of the processes inside the port of entry, but we've been not that much putting much effort in terms of corridor management. But up to this point, our plan had allowed us to make sure that on the corridor itself, on the N4, everything goes according to plan. So we have our colleagues from the SAPS, we have the colleagues from the provincial traffic. They are actually out there together with the border guards to make sure that on the corridor everything goes according to plan. But in terms of the volumes that we have seen up to this point, we can still see that everything is still very much manageable. We do not have any much congestion that is taking place at this point. So we are still inside the port very much ready in terms of processing the people as they are to exit South Africa into Mozambique, as it were. And therefore everything is going according to plan up to this point.
Let's talk about some of the processes that you've put in place, of course, to streamline this process and to make it easier, because of course we saw what happened here last December and January, where we saw huge congestions, trucks and vehicles queuing for kilometers. Can you expect to see any of that?
Yeah, so what we can say is you will remember that from the 1st of April 2023, as the Border Management Authority, we had officially taken over all of the various functions that are taking place in the ports of entry. So as we speak now, we no longer have the Department of Home Affairs, for example. In the ports, we have taken over the port immigration functions. We no longer have the Department of Agriculture, we no longer have the Department of Health, or even the Department of Forestry, Fisheries and the Environment. All of those functions, we have consolidated them under the Border Management Authority, under a single command and control. So that on its own had allowed us to be able to infuse the various standard operating procedures and make sure that we have integrated standard operating procedures in the port. That on its own had allows us to be able to process people more efficiently and more effectively. And that is the biggest change that has actually happened up to this point. But the other thing that we have done, we have actually deployed technical experts on the ground on a full-time basis, on a 24-hour basis, to make sure that all our systems, in terms of the immigration systems, all of the systems are up and running. There is no system that is actually down, because that also used to cause a problem in many instances where you find that the system goes down and therefore we are not able to process people, we have to wait and all of that. The other thing that I can also indicate is the issue of our generators. They are all up and running, everything is in order. So even in instances of us having load shedding, as an example, we are not affected at the port in terms of the processes. So all of those issues had enabled us to be able to do this work more efficiently and more effectively.
Let's talk about the correlation between the two countries, just to help ease things here. What sort of correlations do you have with Mozambique?
So what we have actually done, because you will remember that initially we will have situations where on our side we are able to process people more effectively, but on the other side you find that they are actually struggling and they're a bit slow, and therefore traffic still builds on the corridor. So what we have done this time around is we have spoken to our colleagues in Mozambique. We have co-located with them in two areas. The first one, we have co-located with them in a place called Kilometer 7 inside the country. What actually is happening there is that we process people there in terms of immigration to exit South Africa, but also to enter Mozambique. Meaning that when people are processed there, when they come to the port, they don't have to stop, and also on the Mozambican side, they don't have to stop. They drive straight into Mozambique. That on its own had created that seamless interface between us as well as Mozambique. But also here in the port, we have also streamlined the same in a way that we have co-located with them here in the port, and we are processing the people as two countries at the same time. So it's some kind of a one-stop border post that we are actually implementing, although as not yet at an official level. We are just implementing it during this period because it is a festive period, but after that we are going to then disintegrate with the view that we will do the real one-stop border post later as we go along.
Okay, thank you very much for speaking to us. There was Dr. Mike Masiapato, just giving us an update as far as things are concerned here. Of course, we are seeing quite a lot of movement here, but of course at this particular point, Bredan, it's all flowing, and of course officials saying that they are hoping that the scenes that we saw here in December and January are not going to repeat themselves. They're quite adamant that the measures they've put in place this time around will help ease traffic congestion here at the border.
Yeah, and hopefully when the traffic volumes pick up, as you said, Manqoba, a little bit later today, they'll be able to handle everything smoothly. For now, it's all quiet. Well, not quiet, but not as busy as the officials had expected by this time at the Lebombo Border Post, Komatipoort in Mpumalanga. That was an update from Manqoba Mchunu.